way. That's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. Yeah, I can do all things. Yeah, we came a long way. That's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. I can do all things. Yeah. I'm not afraid of the moment. I'm not afraid I can't hold it. I gotta show 'em. Gotta get up in the morning. I gotta do it for Kobe. Lately I'm zoning. Lately I know where I'm going. Taking whatever control it. Show me opponents. Show me opponents. I got a gift and I'm starting to own it. Yeah. We came a long way. And that's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. Yeah, I can do all things. Yeah. We came a long way. And that's what the song say. And I can do all things. And I can do all things.
Real quick mic check. 1, 2 mic check. All good.
And I can do all things. I can do all things. I can do all things. Yeah. We came a long way. And that's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. I can do all things. Yeah. Shout to the city that raised me. Shout to the people that made me. I'm from the 80s. I don't think mumbling wavy. I grew up black on a Jay-Z. Maybe I'm crazy. I ain't been wondering lately. Feel like it's there for the taking. Feel like I'm good with the changes. Know who I am. And that's the most dangerous statement. Yeah. We came a long way. And that's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. Yeah, I can do all things. Yeah. We came a long way. And that's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. I can do all things. Yeah. We came a long way. And that's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. I can do all things. Yeah. We came a long way. And that's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. Man, I can do all things. Yeah. I check the scoreboard. Know what I'm good for. When I check the scoreboard, man, I'm thinking 2-4. Man, that's what I'm good for. Yeah. When I check the scoreboard, I know what I'm good for. When I check the scoreboard, man, I think I'm 2-4. And I know what I'm good for. Yeah. Cause we came a long way. And that's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. Yeah, I can do all things. Yeah. We came a long way. And that's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. I can do all things. Yeah. We came a long way. And that's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. I can do all things. Yeah. We came a long way. And that's what the song say. And I can do all things. I can do all things. Man, I can do all things. Yeah. I wouldn't say we made it, but we made it through. We just had moose and egg and we made them do it. I wouldn't say we made it, but we made it through. We just had moose and egg and we made them do it. I wouldn't say we made it. We didn't make it up, we just made a way. We gon' take it up, we won't fade away. I got too many dreams, gotta stay awake. Ask me if I change, yo, it's night and day.
Shoot. Bear with me. I forgot I got one day I'll learn how to do this. Bear with me.
Oh, look who's just came on.
Zapow! Hey. Sorry about that. I was scrambling there at the minute. I just got wrapped up in my own brain sometimes. I confuse myself a lot. Is that a sign of weakness or strength? I'm not sure.
Strength. Hey, Matt, I met a really interesting gentleman last week who I forgot his name. He was on the show on Saturday. Guy from up in Long Island who does organic turf care.
He's on today. I have him on today at 5 o'clock.
Dude, that guy lives and breathes organic turf care.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have him on. I went ahead and blocked off a whole hour. He's like, "Hey, I like to talk." I was like, "Hey, I love to talk too." So it should be perfect, on point.
You're gonna enjoy it. He was talking about being on there, and it left an impression in my mind. But I think you guys are gonna have a great show.
Well, thank you. I'm super excited about it. I think it's gonna be a good time.
Good stuff. Okay, guys, I'll take care. Everybody, take care, Matt.
Yes, sir.
I told the backstabbers put the knife away. I'm trying to get my family to a nicer place. Room for everybody, but no room for hate. Everybody eating off the nicest plates. But we made it through. We just had moose and egg, and we made them do that. But we made it through.
For the next 2 hours, I'm going to be your host. My name is Matt, the Grass Factor Martin.
When it all comes together, yeah. When it can't get any better, yeah.
So if y'all missed that right there and kind of the intro, what's going to be going on today is I've got a special guest. I got Richard McCoy coming on. He is an organic lawn care guy, and I know everybody's saying, "Matt, but you always talk so much crap about organic lawn care." But there's some very real things that need to be discussed. And specifically, we're going to talk about how to make landscapes, how to make your lawn work for you. And I think that's a big piece that is uncovered. You know, I've talked about on shows before about even in landscaping, when you are picking the products, picking your plants to go into your landscape, and one of the things we should all take a look at, one of the things we should all explore are the ideas of using natives. It may not be what you go to your normal nursery. You're not going to go to Home Depot and go find too many natives there. But let me tell you, you can turn your landscape into something special. You really can. Through the utilization of plants that are normally growing in your area. Take advantage of what your local region is most successful at. Take advantage of that. So I thought it'd be perfect. We come on, we just have a good time with this. Poor Richard sent me some talking points that we could use, but he doesn't know that I get on here and I let this just fly. I love talking points crumpled up and thrown in the trash can. We're not going to do that. We're just going to get down and dirty. We're putting our hands into the dirt. What is it? What is it that said? Keep your hands dirty. I can't remember Darren saying. I'm drawing a blank. I don't know. I'm trying to think of it, but I can't right now. I don't know. It'll come to me eventually at some point. So at 5 o'clock, he's going to be hopping in on Zoom, and we'll bring him on here, and we'll have a good time with that. Aldo, I'm not saying nothing about you needing to grow beets. I have no idea what you're talking about, man. So, like I said, that's going to be coming up. Sometime around. Boy, my mic levels are coming in real hot. That's going to be coming up around 5 o'clock. We'll have Richard on. Until then, we're going to have a good time and explore a couple of things here. I was thinking about some different content to produce and put out there, and I've got to say I've kind of reached this point right now with everything I've got going on in the real world. In my what do they call it? LARPing, live action role play. I've got so much going on in the real world. I want to take it out somewhere. I need an outlet for it. I get so frustrated sometimes. One of the things I have to make sure I don't do is you keep it out of my house, right? I can't come in and just start yelling at my wife and kids and all that fun stuff because I'm having a bad day at work. Can everybody still hear me? My levels are just all over the place right here. I don't know what's taking on. Let me try this. Is it any better? Somebody said volume. 1 second, let me disconnect and then reconnect and see what I've got going on here, because all of a sudden I lost a significant amount of volume. And I don't know why. Check. Check. Let's see if we can continue hearing my voice here. I don't know. It was just so weird. All of a sudden, I lost all my levels. Let me try and fudge some numbers here, and see if I can get this to come back up. How weird is that? I literally went from like blowing out to all of a sudden I literally lost everything as far as my sound, and I have no idea why. I tell you what, these soundboards, as much as I love them, I mean, they're just finicky, absolutely finicky. Yeah, I look like I'm doing okay there. Yeah, I look like I'm doing all right there. My audio processing, that looks fine. We'll check the master on it real quick. I apologize I have to do this right now, but sometimes it just gets a little squirrely. Sometimes it just gets a little squirrely, and you gotta do the best you can with it. All right. Let me do it like that. We'll change this and then change that. There we go. And then come back to this. Yeah, the music should be clipping. I had it down pretty low. I've got ducking turned on, so it should could have kind of bounced down to the background. I don't know what happened, but I'm just gonna run with it. Forget it. All right. Hey, you know what? It's a learning curve. Every day is something new. You just got to jump in there head first, tackle it, and let it lie however it's going to lie, right? So anyway, I was thinking about the different types of content I want to be producing and stuff, and with what's going on in real world, I figured in LARP world, I would just go ahead and just turn it up to match everything that's going on. What up, David Watkins? And so, kind of my idea is, as far as what I'm going to be doing is, I'm going to do an entire series that my whole goal is. I don't know. Maybe should I tease it or should I not? I feel like they're just. I want to do a whole series, purely technical, way more technical than I even talk about things now. It's going to be very technical. It's going to be very scientific. We're going to look at studies and all this fun stuff, and we're going to go over some hot button issues, right? So we'll talk about, like, for instance, vinegar for weed control. We can talk about dethatching or power raking. And check the NPK levels. That's funny. I want to talk about liquid aeration. I think that's always a hot topic that, you know, can be explored and kind of beat around and better understood. Steve said they found Cody. Where'd they find him? Is he okay? I'm worried. Where was he? Because I don't know. Okay. All right. Good deal. Yeah, I'd be real curious to see where Cody is. So anyway, I want to do this. I want to do this whole series where we just deep dive into these things. And you know what? I'm doing it purely with the intention of making people as angry as possible, because I'm angry right now in my life, and I need a place to divert that energy. Literally, and this is how embarrassing it gets. And you got to do what you got to do to keep, you know, the real life out of your home. You know what I mean? Like you gotta have that degree of separation between work and your home life. And today I caught myself, I was sitting in a parking lot, just so that way I could blow off some steam before I started going home and just being a general jerk to my wife and kids. And I was like, you know what? I've got to find a better outlet for this, rather than just sitting in a parking lot wallowing in my own feelings. I've got to have a better outlet. So I said, forget it. Screw it. That's, you know, what else can I do? And just completely out of the random, I got an email, and the email asked me about liquid aeration. And my head just exploded. I mean, and I was like, if this is just going to fit into everything I have going on right now, you know what? I'm going to use it to my advantage. This is a sign right here that I don't know. Maybe this is the way I need to direct my energy. Jason Traylor said, "Why are you angry?" Due to work. So we've got, and there's going to be an email coming out soon. We're trying to find the appropriate timing, but you know what? Turfs Up Radio, you heard it here first. We're going through a big internal restructuring. And we're going to have to shut down, and there's it's way more complex than just that. But at least of how it's going to affect everybody else in the public, I need way more trigger therapy. You aren't kidding. The way it's going to affect everybody in the public, really, the only thing that needs to be known right now is that we have no other option. We're going to have to shut down for a period of time. I don't know if that's going to be 1 week. I don't know if that's going to be 2 weeks. I don't know if that's going to be 4 weeks. I don't know if it's going to be 3 months. But I know it's coming, impending right now, because there's no more control on the back end until we get all of these things taken care of. And it's really frustrating because, you know, we've got employees. Obviously, I'm an employee of my company, and it's I'm not going to get too much into it, but we have an impending shutdown looming over our head, and it may have actually already taken place. We're not sure. That's kind of the other thing we're trying to figure out too. But you know, it is what it is, and you gotta be quick on your feet, light, nimble. You got to keep your head moving. Don't get caught with an overhand right. You know, don't. Sure as hell don't let a jab take you out. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's what's got me frustrated. And so, you know what? I need a place to vent my frustrations. I talked to my wife about it, and I said, you know what, Asami, let's go about this the healthy way, and let's put that anger into motivation to produce content. How about that? How about that? What is it? What is it? Catch me outside. How about that? I wish I just had a, let's see.
And all these hoes laughing like something funny.
She's talking about the audience that they're laughing at her.
Did you say
Nobody can hear
the
this.
hoes are laughing?
Yep.
So the audience are a bunch of hoes.
Yep.
Okay. I had enough of that. I thought it would just be the clip that said, catch me outside. How about that? So anyway, that's what I've got going on. And like I said, today, coming up, 5 o'clock, we got Richard McCoy coming on. We're going to be talking about organic everything, right? And we're going to be talking about natives. We're going to be talking about using ecology to your advantage. And this should be a good lesson for everybody, myself included, on ecology. You know, I know lots of things about soil interactions and chemical interactions and all that fun stuff, but there's always more to take in. There's always more you can learn. And what I would like is, even though we kind of come from two different places, where we can come together and find common ground and see how to integrate what each one of each other do over in the way we manage properties, the way we manage turf, and the way we manage plants, the way we manage nature. Where we can find common ground should be important, and it hopefully sets a blueprint for the way the rest of the world should operate in such a I don't know, kind of a weird way. You know, you think about everything that's going on right now in the U.S. You got one side fighting the other side. You know, at what point can somebody just find a way to come together and find some commonality and be like, whether we like it or not, whether we like each other or not, we can at least agree on a couple things here. And these things we can agree on, let's then grow upon, right? Of course, we're always going to have differences. Every human being on earth is going to have differences. But where can we find common ground and use that to each other's advantage to grow together? Real quick, I got to take a break, and when we come back, we'll move on to segment number 2. You're listening to Turf's Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey Green Industry Pros, Turf's Up Radio is celebrating what a great first year we had and wants to give you $100 just for being involved. That's right, all you have to do is visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 and follow a few easy steps. When you hear your name live on the radio, we're going to send you a crisp $100 bill. So be sure to visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 to claim your cash. And remember, Turf's Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey guys, it's Frank Borg. More lawn care pros are working on their business rather than in them with the Lawn Buddy app. Lawn Buddy puts you in the driver's seat right along with your employees, helping you to guide them through their work while you focus on growth. With the Lawn Buddy app, you'll be more confident that work is being done and more money is being made faster. To learn how Lawn Buddy can help your lawn care business, visit lawnbuddy.com or simply download the Lawn Buddy app today. Great job, guys.
Hey everybody, this is Hecubus from the Nightcap. I'm just sitting here relaxing within the vault with my friends and a tasty, tasty pint. You should stop by and listen in sometime. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live only on Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Every Wednesday night.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is?
Hump Night with The Duck. 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. Only on Turf's Up Radio.
Hump day?
We have to put up with this?
The Rock! The hot place!
You're not the top.
Did I say something wrong?
The Duck. On Turf's Up Radio. Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Are you a military family with a spouse on deployment away from home? Did you know that nonprofit Project Evergreen has thousands of volunteers across the country ready to help military families with lawn, landscape, and snow removal services? We call it Green Care and Snow Care for troops. If you are a military family and would like to receive this free service, or if you'd like to volunteer to help, visit projectevergreen.org. Project Evergreen, creating a greener, healthier, cooler Earth, 1 yard at a time.
All right. We are back. Still kind of finagling these settings here. I'm seeing not a lot of output on a couple of my channels. It's kind of squirrely here. I'm just gonna wing it. I'm gonna wing it. Sometimes you just got to do the best you can and see where everything ends up lying. All right, we'll call that good and just roll with it. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the idea. I figured I'd do a whole segment there. Well, good. I'm glad it sounds fine on your end because it is showing is hardly coming through on a couple channels, and I don't know if maybe I need to bang my board on the desk or something, and all of a sudden it'll return back to normal. It was just so weird. What are the chances that you just lose all of your volume all of a sudden? Where literally I touched nothing as far as my settings are concerned. I don't know. I can't figure it out. I'm not even going to try to at this point anymore. I'm just going to run with it. Run with it. So, yeah, I thought that would be a good, healthy way to direct my energy is, just put it into some good, nice, exciting, honest, deep dive look into different things that I would consider to be quote unquote buzzwords. And I would ask actually you, the listener as well, to make suggestions to me. If there's something you think may be an old wives' tale or something you have questions about or concerns about, send it to me. I'm actually building a list right here of the different things I'm going to talk about. So I've got organic weed control. I'm going to do a whole one on tenacity, power raking and dethatching. I'm going to do a whole one on biochar. I'm going to do a whole one on organic fertilizer. That way nobody can say anything against me. He's just defending his own products. I'm not. I'm going after any and everything I possibly can, even myself. Liquid fertilizer, just granular fertilizer as a whole, liquid iron. Those are some of the things I've got right here. So, I was like, man, to heck with it. Let's run with it and see. Let's see what kind of feathers we can ruffle. Give me just a second. All right. Ray has a good one here. Gypsum, Epsom salts, seaweed, and kelp. Hey, that is a good one. And I was intentionally going to stay away from kelp, but Ray, that may be kind of a fun one to do too. It's just a whole segment on that as well. Kelp is one of those things I guess I would go at it from the standpoint, and this is honestly how I'm going to go at it from my standpoint on all of these is going to be kind of a two-part deal here where I'm I'm going to talk about the common misconceptions about how it doesn't work. How people are going to tell you what it does and tell you how that's exactly what it doesn't do. And I'm going to explain it then from a scientific standpoint what it actually does. And then it coming at the end and explain how to use these things to your advantage in an accurate way. So many things get painted as a cure-all, and it just makes me want to bang my head against the wall. You know, it's kind of like if somebody tells you, hey, I've got a screw that I can't get out, and they're like, oh well, you need a drill. You need a drill. Get a drill, and you can get that screw out. And so this person goes and grabs a drill, and they're like, man, I got this drill. I got a badass drill. I went and bought a $4,000 drill, and I still can't get the screw out. And they're like, oh well, you know what you need? What you need is that you need to put a bit on the end of that drill. And so they go and they get a bit, and they're like, man, I got the best bit money can buy, and I'm still drilling on this, and I don't understand. How do I get it out here with? It's still not coming out. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, well, you know what? You need a hex head, and you've got a flathead on that, and the flathead's too big. It's not fitting into the screw. And you're like, oh, okay. And so there's all these little steps that could have saved that person so much pain and time and energy and money that I see it taking place here where people feel like, well, if I just buy the same thing they're using, I can get the same results they get, when in actuality, I've said it before and I'll say it again, oversimplification is devaluation. Oversimplifying things is not the right way to approach it. It's just not. So yes, exactly, that's what I'm talking about. The whiteboard is going to come out of retirement. And I'm going to beat it into submission. And what is the deal with the drilling going on? I missed something. Someone is going to have to explain to me what is going on with the drilling. I do not get it. Steve, I'm glad Cody's alive. What was the other thing you said up here? Fairy rings. What's with you having to deal with all these fairy rings? You ask me about it all the time, I feel like. Maybe it isn't you. Somebody else was. Are you asking for how to handle fairy rings? Because it's not easy. There is no surefire way. That is one of those ones that is a total crapshoot on how to manage a fairy ring. There is no doubt about it. So I tell you, the first thing you do, the first thing you're going to go do, Steve, is you're going to go get some tenacity. And then you're going to dethatch your lawn. And then after that, you're going to power rake it once it starts to recover. And then after that, you're going to put down a little bit of liquid aeration. And then you're going to put down some biochar. Follow that up with some organic fertilizer. And then after you apply the organic fertilizer, about 15 days later, you want to apply just a regular granular fertilizer. And then about 15 days after your granular fertilizer, you want to apply your liquid fertilizer. And then after about 30 days after that, you're going to go with some liquid iron. And that should take care of your fairy ring. My favorite comment right here, Sean, is actually yours. Garden gnomes kill fairy rings. That's hilarious. Actually, Sean, garden gnomes scare fairy rings away, as a matter of fact. That's what they do. They frighten it into submission. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. I'm going to go ahead and plug it again, that at 5 o'clock, I've got Richard McCoy coming on. He's going to be our resident organic expert. And we're going to dive into a couple of things here. You know, he sent me this, and so I figured we could use it for an introduction, right? And then we can kind of move into some of the topics he had listed here. So Richard is an advisor for the Organic Landscape Association. He's part of the Association of the New Jersey Environmental Commissions. He is a Rutgers certified organic lawn care provider. He is an NOFA accredited organic land care professional. He is a organic lawn care accredited professional, and he's a New Jersey DEP certified natural turf and landscape manager. So we should definitely have quite a bit of stuff to dive in here. I think we can kind of, you just name it. You pick a starting point on really any of this, and we can go into it. Some of the things we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about balancing managed lawns and native plants in the landscape. I think that's a good one. I'm a big fan of native plants in the landscape. How do you balance that with your lawn? There's answers to this. What is ecological land care? I think I think it's definitely worth exploring there for sure. And then we can talk about organic turf systems versus synthetic turf systems. And I think we can work through all this with pretty significant civility here. Oh my goodness. I just noticed I've got lots of messages over in the Discord. Boy, can you ask when drilling, should you feed the ground the tip of the drill or bury it all the way? Oh, look at all this right here. Man, John, you are really killing it. What else is going here? How much of what? Who's ready to... Wow. Can you do one on how many ounces of humic you need to replace nitrogen in treatments and how to calculate nitrogen from a thunderstorm? Is this happening? Is this happening? Listen, this is one of the things that I put together. Hang on one second. Let me switch over channels real quick. I sent this to Ryan Knorr earlier.
Why is this a stupid video? It's just been stupid. There's a bunch of stupid comments and stupid thought processes that happen a lot.
Did you catch that?
Why is this a stupid video? It's just been stupid. There's a bunch of stupid comments and stupid thought processes that happen a lot.
There we go. Anyway, I was kind of putting together some sound clips for all that, and I thought that would be a good one too. Steve Willie said, I have made millions using only 4600 and 24D. Do I need to tune into Turf's Up Radio? Well, here's the thing, Steve. This is the thing, and I think this is worth the conversation. You make a good point. At the end of the day, it's all about how to be profitable too. But also, the second piece of this is the longevity of the industry. And as more and more scrutiny is placed on us for operating that way, as just a 4600 and 24D type company, because everybody's done it. I've been a part of a company that did that. That's how you cut your teeth. If you learn how to make it look good with 4600 and 24D, then you could pretty much pick your poison on the back end of that and really improve upon things. That's the absolute bare minimum, bare basics of anything, really. So, do you need to tune into Turf's Up Radio? Yes, and I'll tell you why. Is because more and more the industry as a whole is undergoing more and more scrutiny, and that's why we see places where lawn care has been banned, like in Maryland, and more the lawn care industry is becoming the scapegoat of agriculture and the environmental extremists. And I'm going to use it that way because there are. Over the years, I have encountered more and more as the time passes, more people who are no longer interested in scientific explanation. The scientific method is deemed a problem. And what dictates their thought processes, what dictates their line of logic, their line of reasoning, has become, unfortunately, emotion. And so, in the same way, you can say, Steve, you can legitimately say, I'm applying a carbon-based fertilizer in a broadleaf weed control. But I can turn around and I can say, you are applying harsh chemicals to the lawn. Which one is right? Well, I'll tell you which one is right, and it's which one the public looks at and feels most scared about. Because the public perception And the people with the loudest voices are going to be the people who are the most scared. So, Steve, if you can say, what we have done is we have taken an industry where we used the most basic of products, 4600 and 24D, went back to the books to figure out how we can take additional inputs among N, P, and K and applied at rates only necessary to be conducive towards the benefit of the plant, and become selective in our herbicide applications, that when we make the herbicide applications we are not making them indiscriminately, but doing so for a very distinct purpose, and that distinct purpose is to make sure we are keeping the pests at bay that need to be at bay. That sounds totally different than, I was out with some urea and some weed killer today. You see what I'm saying? It's totally, it sounds different, it feels different. One invokes fear, the other one is an attempt at education. So as more and more of that fear becomes the dominant piece of what we do, we've got to learn how to talk about how much we've evolved. Because lawn care is completely different today than it was in 2005, 2006. I mean, when I got started, my summertime mix was slow release nitrogen, methylene urea, and MSMA. I mean, that was it. I know you're kidding, Steve. I know you're kidding. I know you're kidding. I'm not bonking you on your head, sir. But realistically, that's how I got started. You get out there and boy, you fire it off, man. You put it in your yellow tip gun and you go light things up. That was how I cut my teeth in lawn care. The literal burn and return. So it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot significantly. And I think that's important, an important part of our story. And I think that's an important part of what we do. And I think it's an important part of learning from our history, learning from our mistakes over history, to show how far we can go. That we are malleable. We do have the ability to adapt and change and grow and evolve. So I think that I think that answers the question. I sprayed my first yard in 1976. I know, Steve, you were old. You were as old as white turds. You're one of the funniest people I know too. So I'll leave you at that. I love you to death, Steve. I don't want you to ever think anything aside from that. All right, so I've got to take a break, and when we come back from this break, let's keep on keeping on with everything we got in the playbooks today. Again, 5 o'clock. I've got Rich, Mr. McCoy coming in. Rich. So hang on. More after the break. You're listening to Turf's Up Radio, your industry, your station. Playing the best music.
Hands down and dirty. Turf's Up Radio.
Turf's Up Radio.
Turf's Up Radio. Turf's Up Radio. Turf's Up Radio.
Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Hey, Green Industry Pros, are you new to Turf's Up Radio and want to learn more? Then plug in your earphones and keep listening, because Turf's Up Radio invites you to listen while you work. Our 24/7 live radio platform keeps you up to date, bringing you new tips and interviews from pros like you who want to elevate and educate the green industry. Can't make it to industry shows or events? Don't worry. Turf's Up Radio will be there bringing you live coverage, getting you in on the action. So keep listening to Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, it's Brooke Ford, host of The Green Veteran here on Turf's Up Radio. Be sure to check me out every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're going to hear some great one-on-one interviews with green industry professionals. We're going to talk about best business practices, highlight innovative products, and also provide some insight into some new emerging technologies in the field. That's the Green Veteran, airing each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
We got a couple things going on here. Look at this. This is pretty cool. Here's some cool news. Turfs Up Radio has teamed up with Orange County Choppers. Get out of here with Santos Lopez. And you can check out more at 911stateofmind.com. And we're going to be streaming live with them tomorrow and Friday, 9/10 and 9/11 at 911stateofmind.com. You can check that out. Who knows? We might even have a Turfs Up Radio helicopter coming out. I'm just kidding. It's going to be a chopper, like a motorcycle. We get out there and rev that thing up to 4,000 RPMs and sound like a real piece of machine taking off. How exciting is that? Polo said, so does liquid aeration really work? Please explain. And I'm not going to get into all the specifics of it right now, but in kind of a short-term, long-term scenario, the short answer easily is no. No, it cannot. And there's some very distinct reasons why it doesn't work. And I'll get into the science of that, but just very simply put, no, it does not work. Then also I had another statement here that said, does thoughts on liquid calcitic lime like Calflow, can it really raise the pH by a full point in just 10 days? Yes, it can. And then it goes back down to where it started in about 10 days. So you get this nice, beautiful peak and then gone. Because if you look, Calflow, and here we can pull up the label right here. And what you can look at is you can look at the liming ability of this material. And it's great because you've got 14 pounds of active liming material in each gallon, right? And let's see, it has a calcium carbonate equivalent of 64%. So this is about as effective. It's about 64%, meaning that for 2,000 pounds of dry liming equivalent, it would require 2,849 pounds of Calflow to equal it. So it does not have even remotely close to the same liming equivalent power of granulated lime. Did you catch that? It does not even have remotely close the same amount of liming power as granulated lime. So while it may move for a full point, the amount of buffering capacity here, because you have to remember, when you're liming, that is a chemical reaction that's taking place in the soil. You have acidity in the soil, free hydrogen, and you apply lime, calcium carbonate or magnesium carbonate or whatever the case may be, those carbonates are going to react with the acid, with those free hydrogen ions in the soil, and you're going to get a byproduct of CO2 in water, right? H2O and CO2 is going to be the byproduct of that. So what you're actually getting out of that is so if you only apply 1 pound and you've got all of this acidity over here that's generated from your soil because you have a naturally acidic soil and you only have a handful, well, if it only takes 2 or 3 days to exhaust that supply of buffering material, then, well, you're out of it. Versus if you go out and you're trying to move your soil pH a full point and have some lasting effect, so you apply, that's why the recommendations are 2,000 pounds per acre. It's not just to move it up to that point, but it's to have enough buffering capacity in the soil to continue to deal with your soil pH over an extended period of time. That's why you apply so much. Moving it up and down is not that difficult over a short period of time. You can do that relatively easily, move it up and down by either applying an acid or applying a base. The question becomes is how do you have lasting impact, right? That's why when we talk to Ray, what are we doing? We're applying citric acid to quickly move the needle. We're applying sulfuric elemental sulfur to have more of a lasting impact, to have more of that buffering capacity to help against those carbonates in the soil or free hydrogen ions in the soil. That's why we're applying so much. If you take this, and I'm looking at the label right here, and the recommendation is add 1 cup of CalFlow liquid limestone to 2 gallons of water and apply it. So a general application for diluted spray is 1 gallon to 600 square feet for instant pH adjustment. Okay, all right. For a wide variety of soil treatments, 2.5 to 5 gallons per acre. Okay, so we have roughly 6 pounds of liming material in this. And so if you're in 1 gallon, so you would be applying roughly 30 pounds of liming material across an acre at 5 gallons per acre. 30 pounds per acre. But you pull the soil test and it said to apply at 30 pounds per thousand. Which one is right? I'll tell you which one was right. Your soil test, that one was right. This is a bunch of noise. Now, if you took this and you applied it at let's see, if you got 6 pounds in 1 gallon, and all right, we'll do that. And let's see, 2,000 divided by 6. So if you applied 333 gallons of this material over an acre, then you would be in the money. But how much does 333 gallons of this material cost? And how in the hell are you applying 333 gallons of concentrate over an acre? Do you see where the numbers get funny? Do you see where the science gets funny? It gets real squirrely real fast. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can try and spin this to make you feel as good as you want to feel. And you can try and convince yourself, I know other people that are using it and they're having good success with it. I'm sure they are for a short temporary period of time. And so when they go out and they spray it and they see this visual response, they're like, oh man, that was great. This must be really doing something. And so they're going to immediately start to think, well, my soil pH is corrected. I know my soil pH is corrected because I applied this material and I saw things get better. But now I'm back where I started. Do you know how many times they get approached by that? They're like, yeah, I limed on this date and this date. How much did you apply? Well, I applied 6 pounds per thousand and I applied 6 pounds per thousand. Like, that's not enough. They're like, but the label told me, I looked on the bag and the bag said only needed to apply 6. Well, what'd your soil test say? My soil test said, well, I needed to apply 50 pounds per thousand. I'm like, okay. So your soil test tells you you need to apply 50 pounds per thousand. You applied 6 pounds per thousand, and you're wondering why you have this? Yeah, but the bag told me I only had to apply 6 pounds. Yeah, I understand. I understand what the bag said. But what did your soil test say? Because the majority, I'm not going to say all, but the majority of soil tests are taking into account, 1, the lime buffering capacity of your soil, and 2, applying enough lime to have a lasting effect. Is it really behooving you to apply 6 pounds per thousand if you're going to have to repeat it on a monthly cycle or a weekly cycle for the next 6 years? Is it really behooving you? Like I said, it makes you feel good because you know for a temporary period of time it's going up and down and up and down, and you know you're moving some numbers there. It feels good. You're like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. But are you? Yeah, because the bag told me. The bag? No, the bag isn't helping you. You have to remember at the end of the day, and I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about myself here. I design bags for a living. I design the content that goes on a bag for a living. I design the ingredients that go into the bag for a living. Trust me when I tell you this. What's on the bag is noise. There are 3 things that are important on the bag. Number 1, the NPK analysis. Number 2, the derived from statement. And number 3, the other ingredients column, if there is one. That's it. Any kind of recommendation on rate, throw it out the window. Any kind of recommendation to apply at certain times and not other times, throw it away. Your spreader settings, trash. Total trash. The bag is just giving you a bunch of noise. But there are legal requirements on that bag. Legal requirements. And the 3 important ones are, there's a safety aspect of it, right? Where you don't go pour it down a storm drain. You don't apply it before you're expecting a 64-inch rainfall. Some common sense safety things. But the rest of it, the only thing that's your NPK analysis, your derived from statement, and your other ingredients. The rest of it is pure garbage. It's about as much garbage as liquid aeration. So you can argue with me, and you can make these claims that, I've got this bag, and the bag tells me, or the bottle tells me, but the bottle says, what does the bottle say? What does the bag say? Now, the part where it starts to get weird is when you start moving into, right? And I'll leave it out here. I'll leave it out. There's always two sides of the story. Not everything is definitive. Not everything is black and white. There's lots of gray here. I'll give you an example of gray. When you're dealing with plant hormones, that becomes gray. They have to list an NPK analysis on the label. But you're not applying that for the NPK analysis. But it's the easiest way to get it labeled and approved to sell. If you sell it as a fertilizer, you do not have to go under the same scrutiny as selling it as an herbicide or a pesticide or a growth regulator. All of those require significantly more aggressive labeling laws. Somebody the other day asked me about the difference between phosphite fungicide and phosphite fertilizer. The difference is that one paid to have the label go through fungicidal rigor. Like telling here, someone has a Carbon Pro L label. So this is where they get tricky, right? Because they call it Carbon Pro L, and then you look at it. Let me see. Where's the spec sheet? Of course, they don't have the actual label here. And you look at it, and it has microbial metabolites, right? So that's going to be your bacillus and your biological pieces in it, right? So it's got these bugs in a jug, so to speak. And then it's going to have chelated iron, right? So that way, that's when you apply it. That way, you can't say it didn't work because it turned green. And so as long as you get just that little bit of color response, the applicator can't say, well, it didn't do anything, right? That's another little trick. You'll see that. If you're concerned about the efficacy of your product, one of the things you do is you give yourself an out. It's like performing a magic trick, right? When you're performing a magic trick, or you're trying to do what do they call it when you're using force? When you're trying to force someone into a certain line of thinking or reasoning or card selection or whatever the case may be, you leave yourself an out that if they don't choose the one you're looking for, then you've got something as a backup that, they were supposed to choose the 3 hearts, but actually they said 6 of diamonds, and I was prepared for that. I had an out. And so I've also got that card hidden behind my back too, and I'm only going to show it from my right hand. You leave yourself an out. In this instance, it's going to be iron. And then you look, it contains humic substances. Well, that's their carbon. When they're saying carbon, that's actually what they're talking about. And the way they manipulate that is they'll say, well, it's Carbon Pro G this is the liquid version of it. But Carbon Pro G's backbone is compost and biochar. But this one is actually humic substances. And then it contains kelp. And then it contains Mobile X, which nobody knows what that is. A nutrient optimizing okay. It's more microbes. More microbes. So it's microbes, a little bit of iron as an out, some humic and kelp, and then some more microbes. And between all of that, we should get some good action. Right? That's how I read those labels. And I know because I designed these products. Not these specifically, but I designed products. And you have to give yourself an out if you're concerned about it not working. Or you hit as many of the buzzwords as you possibly can when you formulate the product. All right, real quick. You're listening to Turf's Up Radio, your industry, your station. This is the only live radio station in the country dedicated to an entire industry, the green industry. I want to thank y'all for tuning in, because get ready. Coming up, we got Richard McCoy.
Hey, Green Industry Pros, Turfs Up Radio is celebrating what a great first year we had and wants to give you $100 just for being involved. That's right. All you have to do is visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 and follow a few easy steps. When you hear your name live on the radio, we're going to send you a crisp $100 bill. So be sure to visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 to claim your cash. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Playing the best music.
Hands down and dirty. Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up Radio.
Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Hey, Green Industry Pros, are you new to Turfs Up Radio and want to learn more? Then plug in your earphones and keep listening, because Turfs Up Radio invites you to listen while you work. Our 24/7 live radio platform keeps you up to date, bringing you new tips and interviews from pros like you who want to elevate and educate the green industry. Can't make it to industry shows or events? Don't worry. Turfs Up Radio will be there bringing you live coverage, getting you in on the action. So keep listening to Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
All right. Let's see what we got here. Let me flip some knobs around, because I've got our special guest right here with us today. Richard, did you make it, sir?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, like a
Look at that, it worked.
I promise I've done this before. It's only nerve-wracking the first time, and then after that, it just magic tends to happen. Total magic. Well, I want to thank you for coming on board. You know, I talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, and I know, Richard, you gave me kind of some talking points that we could go on, so that way we can keep the conversation from going stale. But I'm going to tell you right now, I do not prepare any of this. I would much rather just have a conversation, and let's see what we can get into.
That sounds good to me. I'm good.
All right.
I can roll it.
So for those of y'all that are listening, you know, I was reading off his qualifications and all that fun stuff. You know, clearly Richard here has way more experience than I do on this piece of it. So what a perfect way to come in. So Richard, let's go ahead and dive into this conversation here, that when we're talking about ecological land care, what exactly, give us a good firm definition that you operate on with that name.
Sure. So the basis of our work is you know, you hear the buzzword organic, which is a word that I'm not necessarily a fan of. I prefer the term ecological. The folks up at NOFA in Connecticut had come up with the name organic land care, so that's sort of the name we have to go with. But the basis of our work is based in ecology, soil biology, and things like that. So when we're talking about turf specifically, you know, the first thing we do, and, you know, Matt, I've heard you know, your show previously, and I know you talk a lot about soil testing and things like that. And that's the first thing we go to, just like any turf program. And then we go from our soil test and we build from there. If we have to do bioassays to check, soil biology, we can do that. When it comes from an ecological standpoint, that's when we start to deal more with, you know, the ecology and native plants and a holistic system, and approaching the landscape from a point of view that everything in that landscape is alive, from the soil biology, plants, people, you know, insects that are in the tree canopy. Everything that you can imagine is alive, and things you probably can't even imagine are alive. There's a lot of folks that don't even understand what's going on underneath your feet most of the time. So, you know, that's sort of a quick and dirty, nuts and bolts kind of way that we approach what we do.
I think it's a great nice overview there. I think you hit on some very important things, and I want to move into the landscaping piece of this first. And so specifically, when you're I assume you do designs as well as installs, right? So kind of a design build type scenario here.
Yep.
When you're approaching a landscape for the first time, what are give us a list of a couple things that you're looking for when you are making the determination, okay, which plants are going where?
Sure. Well, the most important thing that we do, or that I do when I'm doing sales, is I have to make sure that the client that we're meeting with aligns with our philosophy. That's the first and foremost most important thing, because if we don't align, then our work is not going to meet up with their expectations. So the expectations of that client need to be met. And if we can't service them, there are plenty of people that will do we call it conventional or traditional methods of landscape, then, that's not the client that we want to work with.
Hang on, let me stop you right there. So when you're talking about a conventional landscape, you're saying like you're not the company that's going to come in and install 175 feet of boxwoods.
No, we'll cut down 175 feet of boxwood if you want.
All right, keep going.
Right. So so moving on from there, then we move into the plant material and site analysis and things like that. So, most of the times when people are calling us, they're calling us because of the work that we do, not because of the work we don't do, for lack of a better way to explain it. So when I'm looking at a landscape, if somebody does have a lot of boxwoods and they're what we call problematic, and they have leaf miner issues and they have boxwood blight, and those will be the things where we'll come down and we'll take we'll talk about that, and we'll probably end up removing those and replacing them with an Ilex glaber or something like that, that's a native sort of something that looks similar to a boxwood. But it goes a lot deeper than that. We talk about green infrastructure, rain gardens, and native plants and beneficials, and parasitoid wasps and things like that. When it comes to our landscape, because so many of the landscapes now are just void of ecology. The prior, or the conventional transitional way of looking at a landscape, Matt, is that when a landscape designer walks onto a property, they're looking at it from strictly ornamental value. Right? There's no ecological value that is looked at in a landscape. They don't take into consideration, the beneficials, the pollinators, then not to mention the fact, the damage that those plants are doing if they're invasive. If it's a berberis, or if it's a euonymus, or if it's something that gets loose in the landscape and is going to ruin the ecology of the landscape once it gets loose. A lot of those things aren't even taken into account. And I would venture to say that a lot of landscape contractors don't even do soil tests before they start to review landscapes and things of that nature.
I know for a fact they don't, because of the number of times I've gone in and just see horrific decisions for why something was planted where it was planted. And so much of this, and I want to stress to everybody listening, like when you roll up and you see a landscape where you've got 145 green giant arborvitaes planted as a privacy fence or as a border to your property, that is garbage. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry if I'm hurting your feelings on that. But listen, at the end of the day, that is not doing anything for you, really. It may feel good for that time frame that it's growing there, but as you're starting to cut down every other one because you planted with too much density on the front end, and you're wondering why the rest of them are dying, and you get sucked into this tailspin of spending thousands of dollars trying to figure out how to handle bot canker and whatever the other cankers they get. I can't recall off the top of my head. But you get sucked into this wormhole, and you're like, I'll replace it with another one, and maybe if I fertilize it aggressively, it'll grow back to the size of the other ones. How often do you see that? Is that just every day for you?
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. So there are some things, and when you look at ecology and organics, it's not for everybody, Matt. There are just some people that whether they don't want to get it or don't care to get it. They just want something the way they want it. And that's why I said there are plenty of folks out there that'll give them what they want. Our our approach is one of education. And when I walk onto a site, I'm trying not only to obviously sell work for our company, but I'm also trying to educate the clients on, in most cases, what's gone wrong on their landscape previously. Now, don't get me wrong either. There are a lot of folks out there that do a lot of great work, and I'm not just putting down our industry, as a whole, that everybody's out there doing shoddy work. I don't put myself on a pedestal. I just think that there's a lot of things out there that have gone wrong that are accepted in the industry by homeowners because they see that kind of work done on a daily basis. And when they see their neighbors' trees that are mulched 3 feet too deep and their neighbors' trees are mulched 3 feet too deep, they assume that that's the way it's supposed to be done. And it couldn't be further from the truth. So a lot of our work is going back and remediating that, taking mulch off and doing root collar excavations with an air spade and things like that. So a lot of it is the perception, and a lot of it is just that there's so much shoddy work that's done out there that people see that it's accepted because, well, that's the way they see it done. And
but it was mulched like a volcano, though.
couldn't be furthest from the proper way to do it.
Well, so this is great. I love this direction it's going. Let's come at it from the standpoint, typically you walk on site, you're looking at these different things. You made a comment there about air spading and doing some work there on specifically things that have been over mulched. What are some kind of techniques, tools you like to employ outside of just air spading? Say you walk up and you see something that's completely root bound, or the roots on a maple have just girdled it to all get out. What's kind of your first steps in getting these things remediated and back to a standard of living that's appropriate for the plant?
Yeah, especially maples because the roots are so surface rooted and so dense. The air spade is really the best way to go about that. And that's the case with a lot of trees because a lot of times you can't get through that first layer of superfluous roots and mulch because it's so fibrous in there, you can't get through it any other way. So outside of maybe using what's that geo ripper thing you guys advertise?
Yeah, the geo ripper.
Yeah, maybe if you got some big mulch volcanoes that are full of superfluous roots and you want to go rip through it with that, but I'm afraid you do some damage otherwise with that machine. But a lot of it, the cursory work that's done is just done by hand, and then we propose work. Whether it's radial trenching or root collar excavation or a complete overhaul of the root system, where we come in with the air spade, till everything up with the air spade. Then we'll put, we'll obviously do soil tests, put some compost, put some biology in the soil. And then a lot of times with something like that, if it's a large tree, we'll come back and we'll underplant that with plugs to sort of recreate a native understory instead of just leaving bare mulch. Right, because the whole thing is you don't want lawn under it, you don't want compaction, you want to try to recreate that native understory. So you get understory natives that are compatible to that situation underneath that tree that's growing, and you just have a low maintenance planting under something that was problematic previously.
So I listened to a presentation one time from a professor at South Dakota, and he is a professor of like arboriculture or something like that. And he was talking about, one of the things he said that always resonated with me, he said, when you see a single isolated tree, you are looking at a sick tree. Do you have any thoughts on that? What is your take on that?
I think that makes a lot of sense. Trees like people are made to be in colonies. That's why they grow the way they do, man. The roots support each other, the canopies support each other. Think of it. When you see a wooded area that's been devastated by a storm, right? You see one hole pop open. Next thing you know, you see another one open up, and that whole forest starts to fall because those dominoes start to come down because the root system of that one tree started to die back, which is supporting the other ones. Then the canopy's gone because then you lose that support structure from the other trees. So single solitary trees are not made to be, they're not happy. For sure, they want to be in groups. 1 second, I got to take a break. When we get, if you can hang out with me here, we'll keep going until we run out of things to talk about. I'm afraid we will never run out of things to talk about. So I got it.
Bear with me 1 second. All right, you're listening to Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, this is Hecubus from the Nightcap. I'm just sitting here relaxing within the vault with my friends and a tasty, tasty pint. You should stop by and listen in sometime. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live only on Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Every Wednesday night.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is?
Hump Night with The Duck. 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. Only on Turf's Up Radio.
Hump day?
Do we have to put up with this?
The Rock, the hot place.
You're not the top.
Did I say something wrong?
The Duck. On Turf's Up Radio. Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Are you a military family with a spouse on deployment away from home? Did you know that nonprofit Project Evergreen has thousands of volunteers across the country ready to help military families with lawn, landscape, and snow removal services? We call it Green Care and Snow Care for troops. If you are a military family and would like to receive this free service, or if you'd like to volunteer to help, visit projectevergreen.org. Project Evergreen, creating a greener, healthier, cooler Earth, 1 yard at a time.
Hey, landscape pros, are you tired of digging through rocks and roots and breaking shovels in the process? Then it's time you checked out the Geo Ripper 616. It's a landscaper's dream with the Makita 6 Series 2-cycle engine producing over 4 horsepower of raw performance. The 616 digs deep in up to 16 inches of the toughest soils. Lighting, landscape, and irrigation contractors already love this improved lightweight trencher with its ability to get in and get out faster, easier, and with less ground disturbance. And you will too. This redesigned Geo Ripper 616 comes with 2 heavy-duty digging chains and a whole mess of helpful extras. To learn more about the Geo Ripper and how it can help you out in the field, visit georipper.com today.
And we're back. All right, Richard, I appreciate you sticking with me there through the break.
Yes, sir.
All right, so, listen, I think when, and I do not have the experience on designing these types of systems. I do have limited experience on installing them, and mainly the main place where we were going after native installs were rain gardens. So I would say just the installation of rain gardens is about the extent of my knowledge, and building those off a plan where an engineer had actually engineered it. So way outside of my pay grade. I'll leave it at that. But I know one of the big shock and awes after you install the rain garden for the customer was it's not the landscape they were expecting. So when you are designing a landscape, do you ever take that into consideration in your plant selection? And if you do, which plants do you opt to install to kind of bridge that transition into feeling good about their decision to install a native landscape?
That's a good question. A lot of times, again, it comes back to the people that are contacting us, and they've already done some research. They've done some legwork. They know what a rain garden looks like. And if I do approach them about installing a rain garden, then I'll certainly, go over plant material, the plant list, a lot of things that we have to consider. I'm not sure if you do where you are in Tennessee is deer. So we have to take that into account too. So, our palette can be limited sometimes if we have to worry about deer resistance. But the whole thing about a rain garden is it can be a little bit wild looking, but it's just like any other perennial garden. It needs to be maintained. You can't just put it in and walk away from it. So if you consider it, just consider it a perennial garden, and it just needs to be maintained. We don't always deadhead things because, we want, up here, we want goldfinches to be feeding on the seeds of coneflower. We want the native pollinators to do what they have to do, or beneficials to use the hollow stems of these perennials to overwinter. So certainly consideration is given to plant selection, but a lot of it again goes into the educating of the client and the benefits of why it is the way it is, and why it looks the way it looks. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think the number one complaint we would get on an install was how sparse it looked, right? And it would be like, it looks so thin. Are you sure you put enough plants in? And you know what they want is that similar feeling that when they pay for a landscape install and they get a bunch of 5 and 7 and 1-inch caliber plants that are installed and oh, it feels so good because look how big these are, and oh yeah, they're taking up all the space. And then 3 years after the install, as a general rule of thumb, and no lie, I've heard this more than once here in East Tennessee where I am, is that you can expect to remove 33% of the install 3 years after install. Is that not insane?
I haven't heard that.
No lie. I have heard that more than once from people talking specifically about installs. And from a point of education that they were teaching that you can plan on removing 33% of what you install because it'll be so overcrowded.
Well, I think, that comes down to planting plants that want to grow together also too, not plants that, you have to pick plants that are culturally appropriate, that want to grow together. Like I mentioned before, if we air spade under a tree, we're not going to plant something that wants full sun in a dry prairie. We're going to plant something like Carex pennsylvanica that's an understory woodland grass that belongs there. So I think a lot of it has to do with that. Now, don't forget too, Matt, even with a perennial garden, you're going to be dividing plant material. It happens. That's just a part of gardening. You split plants and you give them, provided they're not invasive, you split them and give them to your neighbor. That's just a part of gardening, but that 33% number seems a lot higher than what I would think it should be.
I'm talking about conventional installs, not native installs either. So
I not for us. Part of the issue too is, and not an issue, but one of the things we go for is plant cover, right? Because the more plants you have growing homogeneously together and coexisting, the less weeding you have to do because you got a full cover of plant material, so you don't get weeds germinating in there.
Yeah, and our native designers, like one of the things we would notice is that typically within 3 years, you're talking about a rain garden that is 100% covered, and it was such a freaky thing to see.
Yeah.
And the whole time you're installing it, you're like, oh well, here's another Carex green and gold going here. Here's another Carex green and gold going here, and then you come back after the fact, and it's got this beautiful bed of it's sedge, so the turf guys in here, put your fingers in your ear holes, but a beautiful bed of sedge, and then you got your fringe tree in there, and all kinds of different things going on at the different story levels. So it's so much of it is education focused, and I can tell that's where you spend a lot of your time is on that educational piece. So from that standpoint, how hard has it been? Do you give presentations or talks to conventional landscape installers at all?
Yes, as many people that will listen. Absolutely. I do typically what I've done previously in the previous years before COVID was I would do, the trade shows up in New Jersey, speaking in front of conventional landscape contractors. And it's, Matt, the thing of it is too, it's, when we transitioned our company, we started our company in 95, and in 2005 we transitioned from conventional to organic and ecological. And when we did that, it was easy for us because we had clients that were sort of leaning in that direction anyway. And I understand that what we do is not for every contractor, but a lot of what we do is cultural practices, and when you have good cultural practices in any kind of landscape, whether it's conventional or organic or ecological, that's important. And when I do my presentations or teaching, I come at it from that standpoint. It's like I want conventional or conventional landscape contractors to understand that they don't need to go and drop what they're doing cold turkey, right? Just to start picking away at the edges and start to think about things in a different way. So much of what I did prior to us transitioning to organic and ecological, I was in such a rut because it was, we did what we did because we did it, and that's the way we did it. And what I didn't realize was that once you start to look at the soil biology, once you start to look at different plant material in a different light and realize that it's about ecology, not ornamental value, it really opens up your eyes to a whole different a whole different view of looking at the landscape instead of doing it by the calendar. We pull a lot of the stuff out that conventional guys don't do because you don't need it. Our organic turf programs, I haven't put down grub control since 2005. Because we plant natives that call in, parasitic scoliid wasps that take the grubs out. Fungal issues, you don't have those in an organic turf system because that system's working with the gentleman you had on Monday. What do you call him? Doc. That guy, between the two of you, I heard more chemical names than I ever heard in my life. I mean, I had no idea what you guys were talking about. And the simplicity of organics is amazing once you get it established. And that's the big thing, is having somebody understand that you can't just take a bag of Milorganite and a bag of chicken manure and call it organic program. Speaking strictly with turf, right? Because there's more to it. And, it's the complexity in organics that I think scares people. But when you start looking at it from the corners, nipping away at the edges, start with good cultural practices, start with some native plants, have a client that wants to try things organically and let that, use that one client as a sample property. And if you screw it up, obviously you got to fix it, but that's sort of the approach that we take. And I think that's important to realize too, that, organics and ecological landscaping is not for everybody. Like I said, clientele and contractor as well. Some people just won't do it, and that's fine. I mean, people's business models are set up for what they can do, and that's okay. But for us, this is how we do it, and it's worked for us. I mean, we deal on high-end residential landscapes in the Princeton, New Jersey area, and if we didn't do it right, we wouldn't have a company.
Yeah, I completely understand. Going back, and I could see where the variety and the breath of fresh air that it was for us to install something like a rain garden, because having to go and pick out another Nanogracilis to plant, and you're like, okay, we've got 4 designs, and we've got 13 of them going in, or there's another Cryptomeria, or we got another crepe myrtle going in. It becomes. And then at that point, if everybody's kind of designing the same in that, it's like, oh, well, where can I incorporate a water feature? But you're really, at that point, you're bidding on price because everybody's doing the same thing. And you're not really leaving a lot of room on the table for expertise. I feel like having a landscape that works for you, you can bid more effectively towards jobs that pay for your ability, because you're putting your landscape to work.
Right. And that's another approach that we take too, is, as far as I don't compete on price. And for that reason, a lot that excludes a lot of the work that we otherwise wouldn't do. Because a lot of that work it could be potentially lowball work that we wouldn't want to get involved in anyway. So yeah, the idea of not competing on price is something that, we certainly don't do that.
Yeah, it can. Once you start heading into that wormhole, there's no real way out of it except for competing on price more and more and more.
Right.
Real quick, I got to take a break. When we come back, we'll keep going here. We've got Mr. McCoy, Richard McCoy, on the line here, who is the owner and one of the operators of what is your company name? Richard McCoy's Horticultural.
Richard McCoy Horticultural Services.
There you go. All right, we'll be right back after this.
Every Wednesday night.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is?
Hump Night with The Duck, 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. Only on Turf's Up Radio.
Hump day?
Do we have to put up with this?
The Rock, the hot place.
You're not the top.
Did I say something wrong?
The Duck on Turf's Up Radio. Turf's Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, it's Brooke Ford, host of The Green Veteran here on Turf's Up Radio. Be sure to check me out every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're going to hear some great one-on-one interviews with green industry professionals. We're going to talk about best business practices, highlight innovative products, and also provide some insight into some new emerging technologies in the field. That's The Green Veteran, airing each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey, Turfs Up Radio fans, do you know what time it is? That's right, it's time for Turfs Up Radio. Now you can catch us streaming live 24/7 with pro talk, pro tips, and pro interviews. Simply visit turfsupradio.com. Hey, Green Industry pros, are you new to Turfs Up Radio and want to learn more? Then plug in your earphones and keep listening, because Turfs Up Radio invites you to listen while you work. Our 24/7 live radio platform keeps you up to date, bringing you new tips and interviews from pros like you who want to elevate and educate the green industry. Can't make it to industry shows or events? Don't worry, Turfs Up Radio will be there bringing you live coverage, getting you in on the action. So keep listening to Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
All right, we've got Richard McCoy here online. If any listeners have questions, feel free to send them in. You can send me an email at thegrassfactory@gmail.com. Of course, you know, the stream on YouTube. You can type it into the chat bar there, and we will ask away. And this was one that came in, and there was no right or wrong answer here, Richard. But Steve Willie wanted to know how you feel about stripes in the lawn.
They got to be straight. outside of that, I've got nothing else for you.
He is not a fan of stripes in the lawn, so it drives him crazy, and that's why he wanted to ask that question. Another one was too, and you kind of I'll let you dive into this as deeply as you want. But the question is do these types of landscape installs, landscape systems, however you want to describe it, do they work in the South?
I would imagine so. I mean, we're up here, like I said, up in New Jersey, up in the Northeast. So obviously I'm not familiar with down South, but I think anytime you deal with native plants, you're going to have native plants in the region that are going to work. You know, everything is dependent on soil conditions and hardiness zones and whatnot. But I mean, if you're in Florida, you're going to have natives to Florida that certainly would work in a native landscape. Sure.
Yeah, and I can say, at least from here in Knoxville, even taking a hybrid approach before, you ask, can you have both? Can you have a lawn at a half an inch height of cut and an organic lawn and landscape? And I can say, there's simple things you can start to do where you start to see a big return on investment. And even, the doc and I, we had a show about this. And one of the things we were talking about was when we stopped spraying imidacloprid, the benefits that we saw to the landscape. Because used to, when I first moved into this industry, we used to run this application called TOMB, TOMB, and it stood for Tall Star, Orthene, Merit, and Banner. Merit being, of course, imidacloprid. And one of the weird things about it is that it was an invitation for spider mites. It just you no matter how you cut it, that application was an invitation for spider mites, and so then you're having to treat the symptom and going back behind after the fact with a product like Hexagon to go after your spider mite activity. So what we noticed was that, one, you could change your application method, or two, stop using imidacloprid altogether, and all of a sudden you start to see proliferation of things like your ladybugs, and all of a sudden your fight with spider mites pretty much dwindled down next to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that too. Well, two things, right? When I first started in the industry, I started off as an arborist, and one of my jobs was as an applicator. And on my job card every morning when I'd leave to go spray, it would say, spray the tree canopy for leaf chewing and sucking insects. So I was going out and I was blanketing every property that I would spray with, whether it's Talstar or, whichever one you mentioned. And that's how I started. And now I look back and I realize that the damage that I've done to ecosystems over that 4-year, 5-year period I was working for an arborist is immense. But it also goes to to the point of how resilient our ecology is. But to the point of, a lot to spider mites and taking imidacloprid and whatnot out of the loop, a lot of that goes to putting the right plant in the right spot. If you're putting plants that are culturally appropriate, a plant that wants full sun in the sun, and one that want in the shade, and you're not mixing them up, then you typically don't have pest problems. That also too, when you're dealing with natives, when you're dealing with natives, you have lower pest issues, as long as you're abiding by the cultural rules of that plant. Full sun goes in full sun, wet feet wants wet feet, etc. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a whole different way of looking at things. And, that to that point of having to taken away those chemicals, you can very easily do that if you start to evaluate your plants and the locations they're in. And if they're in the wrong spot, you may have to move them if you can. So that sort of goes to that point of removing chemicals. It's doable, but you have to know plant culture, and a lot of guys don't pay attention to that.
So this next one, I'm gonna make it a little more complicated here, and again, no right or wrong answers, just for the sake of dialogue. Would you agree that right plant, right place is one of the most important parts when designing one of these landscapes or even turf systems?
Yes.
Okay, so where particularly, I live in an area called the transition zone, right, where. Mm-hmm. We still have winters, everything goes dormant. We still have hot summers. We're going to have 30 to 90 days above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're also going to have, 30 to 45 days below freezing as well. So in these types of situations, how do you pick right plant, right place when oftentimes the plant you're planting is only the right plant for a portion of the year?
Well, that's where you have to mix them up, right? Because every perennial goes through a phase of when it looks good and when it goes dormant. So you have to mix up your strategies and like your flower, your bloom time. If something's going to bloom in May, you have to plant something around that's going to bloom in June after the other plant goes dormant. A lot of that also too goes to the, as far as being in transition zones. So when I really put a large focus on using natives, I had to figure out what I thought was a native, right? A lot of different people have a lot of different ideas of there's plant purists that feel as though that you should only use anything prior to European settlers in your landscape. And that would be a plant purist or native purist. So what I did is I took that native purist approach, and I also took a range of area from New Jersey coast to the Mason-Dixon line, out to the Great Lakes, up to the northern United States border with Canada. And then within that, I took the native range of these plants, culturally appropriate zones like we talked about, hardiness zones, and soil conditions. So I could effectively plant something that's a native to the northern United States in our landscape and still, for me, be okay with it, because I know that plant's going to do okay. It's not exactly native to New Jersey or New Jersey region, but it's native enough for us that it's okay. Then you start to drill down to cultivars and things of that nature. Do you use those, or do you use just straight species, things like that? So there's a lot of different variables, but I think if you stick within that range of, or that thought process of finding a zone that you're comfortable with and working within those hardiness zones and soil zones that you and timing of blooms and things of that nature too, you'll be fine.
And this is it's kind of interesting because I'll kind of put the turf grass spin on this, and like for instance here, I kind of play both cards, right? Where in my front yard I have cool season grass, and then my backyard I have warm season grass. And one of the new things we're beginning to see as a trend, especially in sports turf or higher end fine turf, in the transition zone, is this new concept called Bermuda, where people are interseeding Kentucky bluegrass into Bermuda grass. And exactly like you said, the different growth times for these perennial grasses, you get to capitalize on the positives of both. Plus, you also have the biodiversity aspect of it too now, that you're dealing with two, or you may be interseeding with 3 or 4 different Kentucky bluegrass cultivars, and you may be dealing with 2 or 3 different Bermuda grass cultivars. And so you're getting different performance characteristics out of it. And ultimately, I think that's why they're seeing such improvements in surface playing conditions by taking this approach. When used to, the old way to manage this was purely perennial ryegrass. And with perennial ryegrass, that you ran into was the allelopathic tendency of perennial ryegrass, that when it starts to undergo stress from mainly heat, when the heat really starts to kick on in May here, we're going to hit 90 degrees on May 15th, whether you want it to or not. And when it hits that 90 degrees, that's when your allolepathy out of your perennial ryegrass is at its absolute peak. It goes from pure, just rock and roll, gorgeous growth into attempting to sterilize the ground around it. And then ultimately you see a pretty significant decline in Bermuda grass. Now that's being intersectioned in with Kentucky bluegrass versus the perennial ryegrass, one, you do not have to kill it out because you don't have to worry about the allolepathy that will take place that could cause harm to your Bermuda grass. And 2, it cuts down on labor because you're not having to necessarily seed it every year. So kind of an interesting correlation there between the two that I feel like even turf systems, conventional turf systems, are beginning to see some of the common ground between the two practice approaches. So pretty cool there, I felt like.
Yeah, that's pretty. I haven't heard of that. That's interesting. I like that. That's cool.
So here's another one, and I used to be a big nerd about the particular nurseries I would use because of the conditions of the root system of the plants I was buying. I hated pulling a plant out of a 3-gallon container, and I've got 3 years of wrapped around roots in that root ball.
I don't think that's nerdy at all. I'm spot on. I agree with that 100%. I mean, that's one bad way. One bad thing. The other bad thing is just to pick up a root ball altogether that doesn't have any soil attached to the roots. One that's just been dropped off a truck or whatever the case is. So yeah, I mean, it's important to definitely know the nurseries you're working with. There's only a few that I work with. So yeah, that's important. Okay,
so that was going to be my next piece. How difficult is it for you to forge these relationships and ultimately trust with the nurseries in your area? So do you have to take on the responsibility of becoming the educator for your local nurseries, or is it kind of happening simultaneously with you?
There are some nurseries, like I think the work we do, that are further ahead than some of the, I would call them almost conventional nurseries, that are going to cater to, the guy who comes in with a plant list and has a job he's going to do that day, and he's going to throw it in and he's going to be done and get a check and walk away from it. Versus some of the people that will put some more thought behind it and plan it out and spec plants and send a nursery a plant list and say, I need this, and if you can't get this, can you sub it with this? But it's important, very important, that we deal with nurseries that we have relationships with. And a lot of them, there are 2 or 3 nurseries that I deal with. One specifically up here in New Jersey, they're called Sunset Farmstead. They grow just perennial plants without any synthetic fertilizers or pesticides. So they, I can't say they're organic, but they definitely, their potting medium is more of a, it's more of a nutrient-based potting medium. It's not just something that temporarily holds the plant where you throw synthetics at it to get it to grow real quick and get it out the door. And then there are other companies that are other nurseries that we work with that do have that approach, because it is limited. It is limited to what we can get. We deal a lot with plugs. A lot of the plant material we get, especially for our rain gardens and some of our understory plantings, will be plugs, because we don't want to disturb the root systems of the trees that much. So, we'll incorporate plugs instead of 1-gallon perennials. But, there's a handful. We're limited. Like I said, there's a handful of nurseries that we have to deal with, and I will mostly spec trees from some of the other nurseries, and some of the more specialized stuff I go to. There'll be Pleasant Run Nursery up here in New Jersey, or like I said, Sunset Farmstead, North Creek Nurseries in Pennsylvania for our plugs, and Pinelands Nursery also too up here in New Jersey. And then there's you have your site ones and stuff like that up here where we'll go to for trees and things like that. But I go there and I have to be real careful what I'm picking.
I'm not going to go down that wormhole, because I promise me and you we'd spend another hour. We head off into the deep end on that one. Real quick, if you can hang around with me for one more segment, I got to take a break, and then we'll come right back into you if that works.
Sounds good.
All right. Here we are. We've got Richard McCoy on. We're talking native plants, native landscapes, and ecological solutions to the landscape, and even how it coincides with different turf grass. See, anybody can find common ground on these things. This is great. We're having a fantastic conversation. I hope you stick around. You're listening to this right here on Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey, Green Industry Pros, Turfs Up Radio is celebrating what a great first year we had and wants to give you $100 just for being involved. That's right. All you have to do is visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 and follow a few easy steps. When you hear your name live on the radio, we're going to send you a crisp $100 bill. So be sure to visit turfsupradio.com/shout out for 100 to claim your cash. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, it's Brooke Ford, host of The Green Veteran here on Turfs Up Radio. Be sure to check me out every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're going to hear some great one-on-one interviews with green industry professionals. We're going to talk about best business practices, highlight innovative products, and also provide some insight into some new emerging technologies in the field. That's The Green Veteran, airing each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And remember, Turfs Up Radio, your industry, your station.
Hey everybody, this is Hecubus from the Nightcap. I'm just sitting here relaxing within the vault with my friends and a tasty, tasty pint. You should stop by and listen in sometime. I'm here every Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, live only on Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
Every Wednesday night.
Tonight! Guess what day it is?
Hump Day!
Hump Night with The Duck. 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern. Only on Turfs Up Radio.
Hump Day!
Do we have to put up with this?
The Rock! The hot place!
You're not the top.
Did I say something wrong?
The Duck. On Turfs Up Radio. Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station.
All right, that was an easy break. I'm not even going to buffer our way back in with music here. So we've got Richard McCoy on there, and Richard, I think we moved on to that point now. I'm doing this, and I hear you talking. It's exciting to me, and it's something I want to consider. What are the first steps? And I want two first steps. First, the first piece of this, I'm not going to give you both right now, but the first piece of this, what are the first steps as me, the landscape installer, to start learning about how to adopt this approach?
The first thing is to get educated, right? And the best way to do that is, now the beauty of this COVID thing is that a lot of these educational things are online. So the group, the Rutgers Organic Land Care working group that I work with, we have a 4-day certificate course that we're going to be putting on in December, which is a great way to get started with this. Also, too, there's NOFA Connecticut, which they just had a course, and I believe they have another one coming up in October too. But you could obviously just Google that information there. But education is the key, and following up with folks that you're taking these classes from, or I mean, even me, right? I'm open and willing to share anything and everything I can that I've learned over the years with guys that want to transition. I'm because to me, it's really important. And I think that's the way the industry is going to go. I think sooner or later, the customers are going to want, the ecological or organic approach on their properties. And I think it's important for landscape contractors to get that education now and get that other stream of revenue in their companies, and not just sort of pigeonhole them into one type of landscaping. But education is the first and foremost the most important thing. And that Rutgers Organic Land Care Working Group and NOFA are two classes that NOFA Connecticut are two classes that would be great to start with.
That's a great point, and I feel like adopting this and becoming educated in it and learning how to design, learning how to install, learning how to select these types of plants is also future-proofing your business, because, as you said, you think it's going to trend this way. And I think where you're going to see more and more importance and emphasis on this practice is going to be from the millennial generation. The millennials are getting to the age where they're starting to buy their homes. They're taking an interest in their properties, especially now with COVID. They're forced to be outside more than they expected to in the past. And so they start looking at things and they're trying to figure out, well, hey, should I install something here? And they're not there. And then they call somebody and then they get a bid and it looks like everybody else is on the streets. And I feel like there's enough individualism in millennial culture where, they want to do something different. They want to explore the non-conventional way and also aesthetic of it too. And as that begins to catch on and you get to see how unique individual landscapes can look, I feel like it's going to be a big booming business because there's so much more you can do aesthetically that is different than everything else out there that still looks absolutely amazing. So I agree 100%. And the millennials are coming. I'm one of them. New homeowner and out there exploring different things. And I'm telling you, if I ripped out all my landscape right here at the house, not a chance in hell I'd put in a damn arborvitae or an azalea and actually a couple of azaleas of wood, maybe a couple rhododendrons too. But they're actually native to me, so it goes in line. But I have seen enough of these native landscapes now, and had my hands in them that is 100% the way I would go. Not a chance in hell. I want to look like every other neighbor on my street. Maybe that's me because I have a background in plant science, but I don't think so. I think it's just millennial culture. So as a way to diversify your business and future-proof your business, you think about it from a technology standpoint. You buy a Samsung Note 20. Why do you buy one? Well, it's future-proof, that it's going to be the flagship top leader for the next year, for the next 2 years, for the next 3 years. You can do that with your landscape too, and use it as an appeal and extension of yourself and your taste and your talents. So I agree 1,000%. Now, if they're scared and don't know where to start, or they see a couple, what are some first plants that you think people can look at and recognize and feel comfortable working with when they're starting to move into native plants that may be easiest to place into a landscape? Name just some of those that you think would be easiest for people to adopt.
Yeah, I think some of those would be, I think you can even walk into some of the big box stores and, you'll see coneflower, you'll see liatris, you'll see coreopsis, you'll see plants like that. I think the important thing is nowadays, right? If you walk into, let's say you want to start using natives in your landscape and you're not sure what to do, you walk into a garden center and you just snap a photo on your phone and use one of the plant apps that gives you the ID of the plant, where it's native, the culture and whatnot. I mean, technology, you use iNaturalist or one of those apps that will tell you what that plant is and where its location is. I think that's going to be the easiest thing for anybody just getting started, because there's such a broad, for me to just say, I'll give you 5 plants to start with. First of all, you're in Tennessee. I don't know where you have folks listening to from other areas, but there's a ton of plants, and I have a bunch of go-tos that I use. But coneflower's big, Asclepias tuberosa, Asclepias incarnata. The eupatoriums are big because, like I said earlier, they'll call in the scoliated wasps to take care of your grubs. Things like that, and that's just the perennials. I mean, if you want to talk about woodies, and we talked about education, right? Doug Talmy. He's written some really awesome books recently. He's a University of Delaware entomologist, and what he's done in his studies is he's gone and he's studied plant material. Like take, for example, an oak tree. Oak tree will call in 575 different types of caterpillar species into one oak tree. So when you're talking about using natives, that's the thing you really have to look for, is what kind of beneficial insects are they drawing into the landscape. And when you look at Doug Talmey's work, a lot of it is removing turf grass from the landscape and incorporating natives into those areas which might otherwise be a problematic shady area where you can't get grass to grow, where you've been, for years been throwing grass seed and it won't grow. Again, like we talked about before, you pull out the grass and plant understory natives. That belongs there. It's easy. It's simple. It takes care of itself over time. That's a lot of Doug Talmey's work. And there's other authors too, like E.O. Wilson's awesome. I think the thing of it is once you start to dig in, no pun intended, you're going to go down that wormhole. Like I said, at Doug Talmey, E.O. Wilson, Aldo Leopold, and guys like that are sort of leading the way and writing about what the way landscapes should be interpreted and managed these days. That's a long answer for a couple perennials.
No, it's and it's right. I think a coneflower is one of those things. Every time I hear coneflower, no matter what the situation is, I think a friend of mine in North Carolina, he's in Nashville, and he kind of has a niche thing where he seeds a lot of coneflower in native areas or natural areas. And it's absolutely gorgeous. He sends you these pictures, and it's the prettiest field you've ever seen, where he goes in with all these wildflowers, and you're like, man, that literally went from a field of broom sedge, now all of a sudden has some very nice aesthetic appeal. So there are lots of ways you can do and lots of plant selections. I think a coneflower is a great one, but I'm going to hammer you down. I need more. What are some other ones you like to work with? And I'm talking about you specifically. Give me 5 of your favorites outside of a coneflower.
Okay, white oak, Quercus alba. Again, I mentioned the eupatoriums. I love using eupatoriums. The Asclepias tuberosa, I mentioned that. I like Aesculus parviflora, the bottlebrush buckeye. I think that's a great plant.
Great plant.
Yep. What's that, 4?
That's 4. One more? Give me one more.
On, man. Yellowwood. Yellowwood. Cladrastis Kentucky is one of my favorites. Unfortunately, according to Doug Talmey's work, it doesn't draw any pollinator, any Lepidoptera species. So it's a great tree. It looks great, but it doesn't do a lot for the ecology.
Yeah, and for guys down south, I know we got some people down south. You can look up things like the red twig dogwood is one that's native to our area too. So, and in fact, like bottlebrush buckeye, that's native to East Tennessee as well. So, lots of crossover there. Well, Richard, I want to thank you for having on today. I think we had a great conversation. I think we found a lot more intersectionality than probably people thought when they heard an organic person was coming on the line. And I think there's a better understanding about developing an ecology that works together to complement one another and the importance of that. And that is something that nobody can argue against.
Yeah, no, Matt, I appreciate it. And like I said, if anybody that listens ever wants any questions or anything like that, they can get in touch with me through our website. And that's McCoyFineGardens.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn also too. So I'm open. Again, one of the things about being organic is it's a big community, and we love talking about what we do. So I'm more than willing and able to share what I have to anybody that's listening. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Richard. And hopefully sometime sooner than later, we'll have you back on the air. How's that sound?
Matt, this was great. I feel like I've known you forever, man.
All right, Richard, I appreciate it. You have a good day, sir.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Well, there you go. There it is. I think that was, oh boy. All right. I lost my headphones for a second there. I think that was highly productive. And I think especially now that everybody's been home for COVID. And if something you're looking at is redoing your landscape, I highly recommend you look at doing this. I get so overwhelmed. One of the things he kept talking about was stripping out turf grass underneath trees. And if you're going to keep those trees, why not turn it into a native area there? It's the easiest thing you can do that will give you the biggest return on investment. I guarantee you. Stop trying to grow the different shade-tolerant grasses. They're not shade-tolerant. I'm telling you right now, they're not. Anybody that tells you are is selling you snake oil, myself included. That's why you'll never hear me say that. You'll never hear me recommend that. I recommend a chainsaw before I recommended you plant shade-tolerant grass. But in this instance, what a great outlet to go in and be able to plant some understory plants that are going to coexist very well with that tree, complement one another, and improve the conditions of both. So I hope everybody took away something from the show today that was positive. I know I had a great time. Big thank you for Richard for coming on. We'll love you all, and we will see you tomorrow. All right, to the YouTube only people here, I got y'all now all to myself. A couple things. Like I said, whiteboard is coming back. Actually, my wife and I are going to go record today. She'll edit that video. And this first one should be pretty controversial because we're going to come right out of the gate with liquid aeration. And you know, who cares? At this point, where I'm committing career suicide, I ain't got no career left anyway. It's a joke. It's a joke. But I figured, why not? Ruffle some feathers. We'll talk about the pros, cons, negatives, everything else, you know, and try and dispel some of the things around it. So anyway, I hope you stick around for that. That'll be coming out in the next couple days. And we'll see you soon.